Welcome to KCI Kindled, creating space for meaningful dialogue, a podcast brought to you by Kahnawake Collective Impact. The goal of this podcast is to open up a safe space for community members to have conversations about current social issues, both intercommunity and global issues, culture and heritage, and language. This space encourages respectful expression of different opinions and perspectives. The opinions and perspectives expressed belong to the guests of the show and do not represent the views of Kahnawake Collective Impact.
Have you ever been gaming or working online classes and your internet service constantly gets interrupted? First Nations Fiber is about to ensure that just won't happen again. Get ready for high speed at a new level. Click on fnfiber.com and sign up today. First Nations Fiber, empowering people through connectivity.
So, welcome to KCI Kindled. We are back for our second episode. These are all just a bunch of pilot episodes before we really get into. We're trying to just feel things out a bit, trying to get a direction, trying to find our voice with the podcasts. So we have Denon Phillips.
Hello.
Who is the co-host for the show today. And we have Merrick Diabo on as our guest for today's show.
Buongiorno. Buongiorno.
So I just want to introduce Merrick. Who are you?
Who am I? I'm Merrick Diabo. I'm born and raised here in beautiful Kahnawake. I'm an old man now, and I have 3 kids, and I have a partner, wase, who is killing it at the university level, and I'm killing it at the high school level with the students that I work with over here at KSS. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. And yeah, happy to be here. Nice to see you guys.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. We actually had Wahesu on for our very first show.
That's right. I listened into the show. It's pretty good. You guys did a great job.
That was a really heavy issue for our first show, but
exactly.
we did really good with it. And I am so thankful that she came on because she is such a beautiful speaker.
Yes, she's eloquent. It's a heavy issue. So
yes, it is.
Yeah. You need some eloquency when in dealing with that issue, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So as far as I understand, you guys invited me to talk about some scary stories and things like that. So how do you want to roll with this?
Well, yeah, it's nice to have you here, Merrick. And as you mentioned before the show started, that this podcast, we're going to talk about many different things, from the hardest of issues to something a little more lighter than with scary stories. Mind you, these are not for kids. Some of them may be terrifying. I don't know. It depends where we're going to go in this direction. But yeah, that's just the direction we're going today. And with scary stories, I could just go in any way.
That's right. Huh? Yeah. Okay. Well, I could tell you that my first dealings with hearing scary stories, as most of us, has always been with family, right?
Right.
For me, it definitely was my grandmother. That was my father's mother. But it's not to say that other family members didn't pitch in, some awesome stories along the way. So for me, where things started was with my grandmother, Nancy, my father's mother. She would tell me countless stories, and most of them to this day, ring true, or there's elements of, I guess, lessons to be learned within some of those stories. Actually, I'll say most of those stories, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember the first story that she told me was about these flying orbs, and they would follow people, especially at night when they've been doing bad things. And of course, I'm trying to utilize the language that she would say for me at that age, right? Like maybe 5 or 6 years old. And yeah, she would say, there was these orbs that would follow people at night, and especially if they were doing these bad things. And well, Grandma, what does bad things mean, right? So she said, there's people that they drink alcohol at night, and they do really bad things to people when they're under the influence. And she said that these orbs would follow them, and they would be on fire, and it would follow them to the point where they'd start to run. And when they would run, this is when more of the impact would happen. It would catch up to them, and it would trip them up. And then something would happen in terms of like a message that would come across. Like this orb would actually, in a sense, speak to the person and say, you've been doing bad, and now you need to get right. What you've been doing, these activities you've been doing, you need to stop because you have children at home, because you have a wife at home, or what have you, right? So that was the introduction for me as a child, listening to this story about don't do bad, and bad won't happen to you. And the beautiful thing about hearing those type of stories is that even though the threat was there from these entities, these orbs or whatever, the threat is there, but the worst things that happened to these people is that incident in its own. There wasn't the follow-up to like, they didn't get hurt. Well, yeah, the guy stumbling and hurts his knee or whatever, he got hurt, but that was it. But the lesson from the orb, this flying orb, is get right and do right by your family and be there for them. Don't be gallivanting and be out all night, right? It's be home and take care of things. So that, at least back then, that when these stories were coming up, those were enough to give a lesson to people to say, well, yeah, I'm not going to go out at night. So for me, that is the earliest story that I got from my grandmother. And it's not scary, and but when you're a child and you're hearing about these flying
scary.
orbs and these fire objects coming at you and tripping you up, yeah, you get scared. And the lesson learned is for me at that age, and I know why. I mean, of course, as an adult, I understand why that story is told now, right? Stay in. The sun goes down. Get your butt in the door, right? Stay inside now because we don't know what's going to come, right? So I understand the safety behind that. And, she was a helicopter grandparent as well. So I understand why she implemented that. But that's the earliest story that I have, and then, of course, we all have the legends we all grew up with hearing, right? So from hearing about the flying head to Dzikadik, to
the hoof lady,
the hoof lady, the notorious, exactly. We all grew up with those stories here in this community, and it's funny. I mean, I don't want to go too off topic. I know I'm here to talk about storytelling, right?
Yeah. All of it, yeah.
But I could say at survival school, the staff that I'm with, the majority of them are non-native staff that I work with, and they're so fascinated by our stories, and they always ask these questions that, why are you not afraid? Why are you not afraid to walk around at night in the community? And I said, well, I think for a lot of the community members, it's just, this has been a part of the way we've been raised. This is a form of normalcy for us.
Yeah.
And right now in the school, there's things happening. Objects are falling, things are shifting around. People are hearing whispering every now and then. And for me as the staff member, I'm just doing my work. I'm typing away, or I'm meeting with a student or what have you. And the other staff, they're like, did you hear that? What's going on? Looking around. Merrick, what's going on? Did you hear that? And, yeah, don't worry about it. I said, they're just paying a visit. So that's what I mean in terms of the normalcy, right?
Yeah.
For us, it's not a big deal. Karina, by experience, when we were younger and working at, when you were a MAD group member,
yes.
and also being a facilitator, the things that would transpire, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there was some creepy stuff going on.
Oh, like the older part of Kahnawake, like that whole village area is a major highlighted area.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much history there, and all the stone buildings are there. And I know there's a science where stone buildings actually hold on to energy, and specifically negative energy, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But the water, which is kind of nice, the water takes the negative energy away. So we have the river right there. But that whole area is a hotspot for all kinds of energies.
Yeah, hello.
I'm not going to say ghosts, and I'm not going to say spirits, but energies.
I like that.
That's good.
I like that. Energies. But no, you're absolutely spot on with that, Karina. I mean, look, just saying history of that area. Come on. There were wars fought, people did.
There's literally the holes in the wall from the war are still there.
Those were for cannons. We forget these things, right? And I mean, younger generations more so, they don't know about those type of things, but they don't know that people literally gave their lives on the line, there.
On that earth.
Yeah. And they forget the area where MAD Group was. People in Kahnawake, they forget that there was a house not far away from there. That was the general's house. Mm-hmm. And there was underground tunnels that led to that house.
The catacombs.
Yes, the catacombs.
They're still there.
They're still there. They're just all. I think they caved them in on purpose. Actually,
there's a home actually that has access to one still, but it's completely gated off, and no one is allowed in there because of safety reasons. Right? They're like hundreds of years old. I want to go in there.
Me too.
Yeah, curiosity's sake, I'd love to go find, the underground map of this.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
It's like
Can
New
you
York
imagine?
City underground, seeing the subway system.
You think about, like, I thought immediately about Paris, right? The underground catacombs, and there's the skulls and whatnot in the catacombs, It's really captivating to hear things like that. It's really interesting. And look, we have our own history here. And you're right. I mean, just talking about this, I'm watching you guys, and it's like, automatically our eyes get bright and the excitement of that
too. I'm already getting excited.
Right? Like, we want to go in with our ghost detecting. Oh, sorry. There's the word, right?
Energy.
The energy detectors. because it is energy. You're detecting that energy. But
that's exactly what that
I'm all
is.
down for it. Like if there is a crew, Kahnawake, if you're out there and you know, like you have this equipment, like let's get together and let's investigate these things.
We got Ghostbusters and
That's
PKE meters.
Yes.
I'm all set to go.
We need
I love
Spangler.
that.
We need Spangler. Yes. So yeah, I mean, just for me overall, yeah, it came, a lot of my storytelling or the stories I heard was from my grandmother. And then of course, hearing it from peers, talking, oh, my grandmother told me this story, and, my father told me this about this part of town and whatnot. But overall, I know just going back to talking with my staff, it's normalcy here. There's not many people that you run into here that question it.
Or there's not a lot of people here that have not had an experience.
That's right.
Because I kind of feel like everyone has either felt something, seen something, heard something, like
on
just
some level,
something.
Right?
Yeah.
On some level, for sure. So I guess one of the stories that I'd like to share is something that you're well aware of, and immediately as soon as I seen you, I knew I had to share this story. And I'm hoping I don't cross anybody or bring up bad feelings or anything like that. But you know what? This is my own opinion on things. So when I was working as a MAD group facilitator here in the community, I guess just saying MAD group, most of the community members that know of MAD group, they know where we went. We called it the White House. So kind of central to the community. And you had pointed out within that area where energies are happening, this building happened to be one of those spots. So I remember as a facilitator, part of my job was just to ensure that all the students, they were cared for and we heard them out. And if there was any issues, we're there to help. And I facilitate. That's exactly what it is, right? So one night, everybody's there. We have a whole crew. There's like 17 or 18. And this is all youth between the ages of 12 to 17, right? So of course you start talking about stories, energy stories, right? Ghost stories.
Energy stories.
Yeah. That's what we had. TM, coin phrased. So these energy stories, yeah. And of course, everybody has a story to tell, right? And I knew going in and talking about these stories that there's going to be a few people who are going to get upset, or not necessarily get upset, but maybe be on edge about things. And
a little freaked out.
Yeah. And when you talk to little children and you tell them a scary story and they automatically think that, oh, did you feel that? Did you sense that? Like everybody gets the heebie-jeebies, so to speak, right? So I kind of figured that's what was going to happen with the teens, right? But it didn't. Everybody was just sharing some really cool stories. And then I remember there was one individual, I wish I could name her name, but I don't want to call her out too much, but she was sitting next to the staircase. You already know where we're going with this. So we're sitting.
I'm already getting nervous. Right? I'm like holding myself.
So I'm facilitating the group. I'm telling my stories. Other people are sharing their stories. And then this young lady, she just stops and she gets real quiet. And she was one that was never quiet. You know who you are out there anyway. But she was not, she was quiet and she just looked up. Actually, she looked up to her left and she goes, "Oh my God, what is that?" And everybody, including the two facilitators, including myself, we turned and we looked and we all seen the same thing. There was, I know people can't see this, so I'm trying to let them know what we seen. There was a staircase, obviously to a second floor. And at the top of that second floor, between the spindles of the staircase, was a face. And the face was of an old man. And he did not look away. It didn't vanish with a blink of an eye or the snap of a finger. He stayed there and he looked at all of us. And the person that seen it, his eyes were looking, like following her, because I guess she was the first to see it. But
yeah,
sorry, yeah,
for real.
Sorry, I just got those little the goosebumps there. But it's only through that experience, right? Like that I could have those goosebumps. But everybody freaked out. Everybody left the building. Everybody went on the porch, and then we're like, "It's cold out. Why are we out here?" Right? But that was that acceptance of, we know that this building is not ours.
Yes. We
know that we're here, and this was somebody's home. So who are we? And this was the beautiful part. Lessons learned, right? This was the beautiful part, was afterwards we talked about it as a group. And even though we were all freaked out, we came to this general understanding of, well, yeah, this isn't our home. We just utilize this space. And that's really what all of us who are living are doing.
It's true, because we're not the first people.
That's it.
Here.
Yeah, we didn't build this land.
Right.
Maybe we built a house around it, but there's, it's been there for a long time.
And even that, the house, somebody put literally their blood, sweat, and tears into that home.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So,
like the original White House before the new building that's there now.
Yeah.
Man, there's so much that happened in that. Oh my God.
Too many stories just happened in that building alone.
Do you remember the entry to the basement? Underneath the kitchen.
Yes, the cellar.
The cellar.
The fruit cellar.
It was a really like kind of small kitchen. So like the regular kitchen stuff, like the sink and all that stuff would be on one side, and then a big long table in the center. But there was only like 2 feet of space on either side. Then there was a door to the cellar. Mm-hmm. We would all be sitting around this large table, like 10 of us, and we would hear like from the cellar. But we would hear that all the time, and we'd open the door, and of course no one's ever there. And eventually we kind of just like
everybody accepted
let it go. We're like, oh well, he's knocking again, like or we'd hear the footsteps upstairs. The footsteps were loud.
That was a consistent thing.
Yeah,
there was a dip in the floor. That was because of weight, and of course the construction of the building wasn't too up to standard, I guess. So there was a lot of weight on that floor, so it had a dip, and that was the floor. You had to apply pressure for it to go down a little further.
To see it, yeah.
So every now and then we would see it just sitting around, talking. All of a sudden you hear that, and it dip. And like, first question is, who's up there?
Yes.
Is it one of the kids? And of course, everybody's accounted for. Everybody's in the room with us, right? So, and everybody would just kind of play it off, And I guess it was because of that first experience with that face, with the old man's face, because from there, and our conversation afterwards, we came to that realization. It's a shared space. He's letting his presence be known. Maybe he's interested in what we're talking about.
Right.
And this is the core of everything that I like bringing up when it comes to sharing these type of stories, is that it's not just about the lesson learned, but it's also, especially now, the time that we're in.
The season
we're in. I mean, I don't fully remember, and forgive me, people, Kahnawake don't know, the months. October, November, December, January in Kahnawake, the terminology for those months are, you're laying things to rest, season of the dead. Hello.
Yes.
Like this is where things die. Well, this is what's happening around us. It doesn't matter what facility you're working in, what capacity your job is. Once again, there were people here before us. There were people that built those buildings, blood, sweat, and tears, and so on and so forth. But there's going to be some sort of link to something that they were passionate about in life.
Yeah.
So who are we to say, you got to go, right? You can't be here. We're not. When's the last time you ever heard of an exorcism in town? I don't think it's ever happened. And if it did, it's definitely in secrecy, right? But even that, in terms of cleaning.
Oh, cleaning. Yeah.
Ooh. Now, once again, my opinion on this, I understand that people are quick to want to clean their homes or clean these buildings. I understand, especially when things are getting volatile, when people are getting hurt. That's when I agree that things should be done. But my personal opinion, especially around these times, is, well, it's important to do your feast, because maybe that you are being visited, just to ensure that there's a reminder, like, hey, remember, you got to take care of us. We still need some of that sustenance that we need, to continue our journey. And sometimes it's just, there's curiosity. I've lost, I didn't lose him. I was going to say I lost my father. I didn't lose him. He died in 2009. And in 2009 afterwards, there was remnants of him, of my father. I would hear his voice, or I would smell his cologne, or sometimes I would feel that tap on my shoulder, which was familiar of a tap I would receive from my father. But the man died. How is it possible that he's still around? It's not physically possible. So what's the other explanations that we have? It's not physical. So we have to think about the outside, or this veil that gets lifted every now and then.
Yeah, the other, right? the other untouchable side.
Exactly. The other side, and there's how many movies made about that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And even that, I know I'm monopolizing the conversation, but I guess that's kind of the point in a sense.
Okay.
But when you look at those things, the movies that are made, who put those ideas into those people's heads? The director, the producer, the writer.
They're all based off experience.
How did they think about these crazy beasts and monsters? I mean,
yeah, it's true.
H.P. Lovecraft, I absolutely adore his writing. Like eldritch tales and all these mythical monsters, gods from other dimensions, like,
or even Clive Barker.
Oh my God, thank you. Yeah, the man
like
himself, right? Where
did that come from?
Where? Somebody or something put that idea there.
Yeah, inspiration comes from somewhere.
Exactly. Thank you. All right, we're speaking the same language. That's it. So, it's even those movies, they're all cautionary tales.
It's true.
Every culture across this planet, we were all speaking the same language.
I think I'm not going to say every culture, but a lot of cultures out there have these types of stories. I'm saying every again, but I kind of feel like all cultures have stories like this or scary stories, because there's something about the fear factor that people are just completely interested in. I'm not saying like the blood and the gore and the horror movies, but there's just something about these types of subjects that bring out that shine in our eye. Like we all kind of sat up a little bit when we started talking.
Well, really?
But what is it? There's a curiosity in that.
It's because something we're familiar with, something we've grew up with our entire lives are these stories. And that's what connects us even more. And we always want to hear a different version of a new version. Ooh, I know so much of, like, say, the Hoof Lady. Well, did you know this? Like, ooh. You sit up in my chair, like there's an extra chapter in this.
And when you hear somebody had a personal experience with the Hoof Lady, right?
Yeah, she lived in my backyard.
Someone seen a print.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the devil's footprint in the stone that used to be your step by step. Where is that stone? Can somebody tell me this?
I actually have a story about that.
Let's hear it. Bring it on.
It's not my own story, but it's something I've heard in my family. Mm-hmm. And I have an uncle that was apparently the witness to that event. Yeah.
Tell me what he's seen.
All right, let's go through the story. What happened?
Again, it's late at night, right? Yeah. Shouldn't be out partying, shouldn't be out drinking.
Yes, cautionary tale. Yeah.
Out anyway.
Yeah.
They live on the highway, so he's heading home. And he gets, I don't remember the story exactly, but he was approached by this.
A person, a being. Okay.
And scared the shit out of him, and he nailed it home. But it was right there, that stone with the hoof in it.
Yeah.
That's his story.
See, now,
I don't know if he seen her imprint it or if like he just seen her at that spot, because maybe this happened like, I don't know, 100 years ago, but she keeps showing up there.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be something like stone, that, right? But it's the stone. Yeah.
Well, see, and it, like you said, then, and somebody tells that story and there's always going to be somebody else to add to it. Oh, well, I heard this. See, now that stone, I heard that footprint was like more or less melted into the stone. So it wasn't just as simple as a tap and here's the footprint in a stone. It was like the person or the being's footprint was like, it was on fire. Yeah. It was like molten,
it branded
the stone. Like stone. Deep into it too. And I remember seeing that stone as a kid. So
but how do you make a mark like that in the stone?
For real, right?
Like, how do you do that? Like, you're not there with like a little tiny detailed chisel trying to figure that out.
Fred Flintstone had nothing to do with that work, right? So how do we work this? Like, what's the logic behind it?
How did that get there?
Exactly. Now, there might be listeners that are like, maybe especially the younger listeners, like, that's not true. And I never seen it. It didn't happen. But like, there's a good population of this community that knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That they know that stone, or the stories of the horse's tails being braided.
Ooh, we just brought that up like the other day. I'm like, we need to talk about that one.
Yeah. and see the beauty with Karina and I, we being at the White House, like right across the street, that's the
barn.
The barn was there before there was a home there, right? Next to Cattery School. And of course, those stories of people witnessing little beings like gremlins or ghouls or something like that, like sitting on top. Some people say demons, right? But I don't know what they are, but these little beings sitting on top of the horse and braiding its tail.
Yeah.
And that was always, at least the way I was told coming up, was that's the devil. The devil sending its minions to get the horse ready for a ride.
Like the horse is tainted now.
Exactly. So don't touch that horse.
The horse is tainted. The barn is tainted.
Right.
I remember being on the schoolyard side, and it was very close to the fence still. And we were trying to poke it once with a stick, and I swear to God, the stick would not. It would bend. So we're going through the gate, and we're trying to poke the barn with it, but the stick would bend in a weird, funny way where it wouldn't actually touch the building. I mean, we're little kids, so maybe it didn't happen, but
it's your experience.
That was my experience
it's your
at the
story.
time.
and with your experience and your story, what's the cautionary tale?
Don't go in that barn.
Don't go in the barn. Don't even poke the barn.
Don't even poke the barn.
Right?
Yeah.
And with those beings, whatever they are, like that's why are they getting a horse ready? Like what? Like maybe it didn't happen. Maybe it did in terms of these creatures, but people seen them. And if the horses' tails were braided, and look, I've never braided hair, but something tells me it takes a little bit of doing, right? And especially a horse's tail. This is a wild creature.
That intricately, especially like, that's.
And there were nights where I did see the tail braided, and there was, if I remember correctly, there was
creepy.
3 horses, and then it went down to 2. And I mean, I was that's when I was a cattery student too. I remember seeing the horses' tails braided. But then as a facilitator of the youth group, you know, I would see that from time to time until, of course, it was taken down, and you know the territory was appropriated for a home and everything. So, but I would like to question. I mean, I know the family. I'd like to know from their part. Are they aware of other things happening? You know, because they live right there. You know, it'd be interesting to have that conversation. You know.
Do you guys remember that there was like a weird well in the schoolyard, just beyond the schoolyard?
On the exterior, yeah.
There were like
just
there's
outside
a
of the wall.
home, like there's the path that walks towards the White House, but then there's like that bush.
Yeah.
There was a well in there.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because our teachers used to take us out there for whatever reason. And I believe the well was filled. But there
like
was also
filled in?
Filled in. And there was also like a board on top of it, I guess, just so that kids didn't jump into it.
Yes, you're right. I do recall there being a well on the exterior of, there's the White House, like, so they have the path.
Yeah, there was.
The one house, then there's the white
with
one.
With the pumps, right?
Yes, there was the pump there, and then there was the podium for like the soapbox, so to speak, public announcements and what have you. Now we have these things. We have microphones. So thank you, advancement in technology. So, but I never knew about the wall until like you bringing it up. Yeah, I have memories of that whole gullied out area. Yeah, I think I never went in there just because of the poison ivy itself. So
that well used to creep me out. When I was like 9 or 10 years old, I was like obsessed with writing. I used to just write stories, and they were all horror stories, of course. Of course. Goosebumps came out at the time. I was like obsessed with writing horror stories, and I swear to God, I wrote about 5 of them just about that well in that yard.
Well, see, we keep bringing it. We're talking about the same area.
It's all the same area.
Well, that's where the heart of all the stories take place. That's right. That's the old village. So
thank you, Denon. I mean, enough said. That's exactly it. That was home. That was Kahnawake. So there's going to be stories that like. But
even so, like all along the river where the seaway was, there's stories in all those places.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There's I don't know if you remember the Green Castle.
Oh my, yeah. That was right next to my grandmother's house. Yes. I
was just telling Denon the other day that place was haunted like crazy. Sorry, energies.
Catchphrases.
You're listening to this podcast goes to the other side as well.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's
this is also energy.
Transdimensional. That's right. Yeah. So
that place was a major highlight. Like,
of course.
I knew some of the people who would live in there. And I couldn't even walk by that building at night. I was so afraid to look at it. I would be like, blinders on, just like nailing it past that house just because you don't want to look in the window. Something's going to be looking at you.
It was green. It was white and green, right?
It was like stone, but I think it was so old that it had a copper roof and copper turns green.
Yeah. Had a bit of a ornate design to it.
Yeah, it was very gothic looking. Looked like
almost like a turret.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Addams Family house.
Yes. There's another
something
one
like that.
There's another home. I know just about everybody that I've spoken to, like especially when you're a child, you would get creeped out. Is across from the Elders Lodge, large brownstone building, has the second floor like a lookout tower.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one, and I know there was an elderly woman that lived there. I don't know if she still lives there, but like everybody that would pass, you know, like you're taking either you're cruising around at night or you're walking with your friends and you pass by that building and then just you get that feeling. And actually that was one of the I think that was an officer's home during the old war there. So was that 1812? I can't remember the year of that war.
It's one of those houses that's got, if it's got the year on it that it was built, so there's something, there's something about this. If it's built in the 1800s or early 1900s, this is
so it has history there.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it too, like River Road, like this, that's Kahnawake. That was central, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's going to be history. And like, once again, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but when you have an old church too, like the church might bring up bad feelings for some people. Some people, of course, they're going to have great feelings about it. But regardless of those good or bad feelings, just churches alone tend to bring a presence as well, some sort of energy.
Yeah.
I mean, they deal with the dead as well. They have ceremonies as well. So there's going to be things. There's going to be energies.
For sure. It's also a large stone building with a history.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. A history. And the same could apply to the longhouses as well in this community, right?
That's true.
They're going to feel things. They're going to sense things. And it's funny, like every practice in this world uses some sort of medicines, what they qualify as a medicine, or some sort of smudge or whatever to either bring it out into the open or release that energy from the area. So this type of stuff is cross-cultural. And it doesn't matter what religion, what culture you're from, there's always these belief systems. Whether you're from Japan or Norway, it doesn't matter. They all have their stories. They all have scary stories.
Ooh, I would love to hear some from other places.
Right? Yeah, I've heard some from our sisters and brothers from Maori territory. And it's funny. A lot of their stories are very similar to ours. However, the South Americans, their stories, their creation stories, and their scary stories are so interlinked to ours. Like they have the flying head. They have their vampires, and people don't know this, but we have stories of vampirism in our culture, and
like just energy suckers or like actual blood suckers with
yes and yes,
yes and yes.
Yes
okay.
And yes. So like we have that, but the go-to stories always seem to be the flying head, okokwa. We just said it, a hoof lady, monkey dog.
Oh, the monkey dog. I almost forgot about that one.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember, Mad Group, about 15 years ago, we were a little bit more relaxed with things. We were doing the Fear Factor.
Oh, yes.
And
love those days, miss those days.
Oh, wow. Merrick, I asked him to come on the show today because he is like the best storyteller ever, especially when it comes to scary stories. He knows how to scare the crap out of you.
Maybe that's the age, though. I don't know.
No, you could probably you'll tell me the same story, and I'll probably still be scared. But yeah, the Okokwa, the cemetery,
yes.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. So context then.
Yes, I'm sorry. That was just a whole bunch of like
words.
That was a big mind meld right there that other people can't see.
That's what happened. You went to the memory. So let me enlighten some people over what Mr. Diabo had vindictively done to the kids that were part of the group there. So yes, we did a Fear Factor, and we didn't ask any permission. Maybe that was bad on me, but we did not ask any permission, and we utilized the grounds of the cemetery. So I apologize, for what it's worth. I know it's years later, but I do apologize for this. We utilized the cemetery as a point of reference for the beginning of our Fear Factor. So one of the stories that I did tell was of Okokwa. Now, it's just the story that I grew up with, the way I was told. So, of course, countless people are going to have another story. But this also is a tale that I've heard cross-culturally as well. So there was a man, Okokwa. One night he was drinking. Yeah, he was imbibing alcohol, and he decided, I need to make it home. It's late at night now. And so he makes his way. For him, the easiest way to make his way home was to travel on the train tracks. So he started making his way home little by little, stumbling, and then he was so intoxicated that he got to the point where he passed out. And so he fell asleep onto the tracks. And of course, we don't really know how much time had transpired, but a train did come and rolled right over this dude. So the story goes that his upper part of his body was retrieved, but the lower part, his legs were not retrieved. So what they did was they did bury the top half of his body in the cemetery. Once again, the story I was told. So, and his body, the top half of his body was covered, obviously buried, but not just buried. What they did put in its place was they put a giant slab of concrete over another existing, I guess, like stone. So they were trying to ensure that Okokwa does not get out. However, the story I told, just to backtrack a second, the story is that the legs continue to walk the tracks. Mm-hmm. Should you be that person doing the same exact thing, Okokwa, the legs will come after you and kick you to the point because he's trying to retrieve his upper half. He has no idea where it is. So if he kicks you and he manages to get you to the ground, he's going to sever the top half of your body and place it on his to see if it's a fit.
Yep.
So that was the story I grew up with. That's the story that I told. So we're in the cemetery and I'm telling them the story. And then they don't even realize. And then I kind of looked to my left and I said, what you're looking at on your left-hand side is Okokwa's burial ground.
Oh, that.
And
sent everyone.
As you could see, there's a crack.
Yeah.
There is a crack along the length of the slab. So every now and then, his top half of the body is trying to retrieve the lower half of his body. So we have to be careful while we're here. So every kid that was there, the look on their face was they did something in their pants that requires going to the bathroom, right? So that was the story back then. And yeah, just the look was priceless. And that was just part of that story. But, the tracks actually is.
Oh, the tracks are so scary. They tell you don't whistle at night on the tracks.
I still don't understand that.
I don't get it. But the whistling at night thing, it's anywhere, right? But I heard especially on the track.
Well, have you heard, like, either one of you, enlighten me because I mess around with my kids on a daily basis. And then the whistling part is one of them, like don't whistle at night or don't whistle when so I do it.
The only thing that I've ever, I guess, been told, I don't even know who told me, like just growing up here or whatever, but is that whistling calls spirits to you.
Okay.
So that's all I've ever heard from it. So you don't whistle at night because they walk at night.
It's not a far-fetched theory. I mean, look, you have Tibetan monks. They believe that our voice, the tone, all that stuff, even they have those chants because there's a certain level of interdimensional travel that your voice will have, or the tone, like the ohms and the ahs and all those things. It carries a certain message and it carries it into nirvana, as they believe. So why? I mean, it's kind of feasible to say a whistling, that tone, that sound might attract certain things.
Well, why do people whistle? If we think about it, if you're whistling, it's because you're trying to catch the attention.
There you go.
Right?
Whether you're
like, or you're whistling at your
right?
dog, you're whistling for your kids to look at you or something. Like
I whistle. I carry a tune, but I don't.
Some
have
people sing with it, too.
Like, but also at night, if I whistle, I'm doing the same thing. Or carrying a tune, I'm not necessarily, or to my own.
But what does music do? Like, so even if you are whistling a tune, music is to draw attention. Of
course,
right?
Sure.
It's to connect. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, see?
Creepy.
Little did I know, you're out there just singing along, but you're actually putting on a show.
Yeah.
And, let's go see what's going on down the street. And you just, I have an invisible audience right now.
Right, exactly. And sometimes they let their presence be known, whether that's that tap on the shoulder or what have you, right? All of a sudden, that cold shiver, and
yuck. Like, did you ever see The Sixth Sense?
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, do you ever feel when the hair on your neck stands up? That's them.
That's them. Oh,
Scare me.
What a movie. That one was priceless.
That's a really good movie.
Yeah. See, that I love that movie because of the simplicity of it, and you don't catch it right away. You don't know who Bruce Willis's character is, and you're watching the whole movie and then, oh my God, it blows you away towards the end, right? But some of these circumstances happen real life for some of our people, and not just our own people, exterior, but these are stories to carry on. I mean, I hope, when I'm not on this earth anymore, that the stories that I shared with my kids and community members and, that they will remember, oh yeah, this one time, this guy, Merrick Diabo, or my dad told me the story that happened to him or happened to so-and-so. Like, actually, I'll give you a concrete example of one. My father had no belief in an afterlife, no belief in energies, ghosts, goblins, vampires, ghouls, whatever, the whole nightlife, so to speak. He had no belief in it. He believed that when you die, that's it. That's it. It's lights out. It's darkness after that. Darkness is still something, right? So he told me he did work at the train bridge. He was a security guard. And being a skeptic that he was, he didn't really believe in, you know, all these things that I mentioned. But one night he hears something. He hears a da-doom, da-doom, da-doom. I hope your listeners can hear that because I can hear it through the mic. They hear da-doom.
Oh yeah. By the way, you should be listening to this at night.
Yes.
Oh, I hope so.
Full on effects.
Yeah. So you hear it. Da-doom, 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 da-doom. So he gets out of his booth and he looks around. What the heck is that noise? From a distance, around the bend of the train track, the turn towards the train bridge, he sees something. He sees this glimmer, and the way he described it was this green aura. And actually, I know people can't see it, but this corridor here is pretty much the color that he's seen. So like this really bright, vibrant. Oh, Slimer green.
Slimer green.
Ghostbusters green. Slimer green.
Yep.
He sees this color, so I tie it immediately to ectoplasm. That's what I thought. So he hears that noise. He sees this green stuff approaching. And so he stands on the tracks and he sees it quickly coming. It was a train. So that's that noise. That's the track bumping the ground. Da-doom, 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 da-doom. And he hears that, right? And it's quickly coming. It's getting intense. So now he freaks out. He runs to the booth and he hides in the booth, but he's looking out the window. And he said the train came by and he said it was all green. And he said, but the whole back end of the train was on fire. And he said, but the flames were green. So he thought logically, well, the flames are covering the entire train. But then as it passed and he felt the heat, there was literal heat, he said, coming from the back end of the train, not from the whole front, just the back end. And he said at the back, what he's seen, it stuck with me forever. He's seen people in flames trying to jump out the back to live. And then as soon as it got to the train bridge, it was gone. And he said he felt the heat, he's seen it. And this is once again, a complete skeptic, not believing in this stuff, coming home and telling my mother what he's seen. And then of course, by extension, I hear this story and I retained it all these years. And this isn't that long ago. Like, maybe, for some people it is long ago, but it's like 30 years ago or so, so that's when I remember hearing the story. And he had night shift. He would work from 5 o'clock at night till 5 a.m. So, and he kept saying there was a time that these things started, that they would happen. And he said it would be like between 2 o'clock and 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
That's the witching hours.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. And once again, he's a skeptic. He didn't believe in this stuff, but this is what he's seen. There was other things that he's seen, weird, crazy things.
I bet, especially being on the water like that. There's tons of energy.
And iron.
Yeah.
And but see, those of you that are supernatural fans, you would think that the iron would have been a deterrent, but it played no. And I'm talking about iron in terms of the tracks themselves, right? The rails themselves. You'd think it would be a deterrent of that energy, but it seemed to be more of a conduit. I guess it depends on whether you choose to believe this. That energy doesn't have any bounds. But maybe what it means is something like that train, that's unsettled business.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I wonder if there's some kind of event or historical
there's gotta
thing
be.
like that's actually happened, because a lot of energy stories, trademark,
yep.
They there's a bunch of different types of hauntings, right? And one of them is that it's like the replay on a loop.
Right.
Where the energy is just there and it's just repeating itself.
Residual energy.
So it's not really conscious. It's more just, it's a memory.
Right.
That continues to repeat.
It's a memory that's lost.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that concept. A lost memory, just, on loop.
Yeah. So I wonder, it'd be interesting to see if there was something like that happened.
Well,
in the area, because it doesn't necessarily have to happen specifically on that bridge, but in the area.
It'd be interesting to know, who we could get in contact with about that. Is that CN Rail? Is that
maybe just Googling old articles, we might be able to find some stuff. Yeah,
I mean, it's within reason that there must have been on a train track an accident in the past. Well,
we used to have train tracks all over this town too. A couple years ago, we had a historical figure in Kahnawake come and tell us stories, because I worked at the White House with the teenagers there as well. So we were let's do some Kahnawake history.
Yeah.
So he actually told us that like near the hospital, the original hospital that was there was a hotel
Yep.
first because of the ferry that would bring people to town to catch the train to go wherever it was that they were going, because Montreal's an island they had to get over. So like the train tracks would go through town, the OCR, like all the other places, right, to bring people. There was one that went all the way out by St. Remy. Like even in my neighborhood, the Sesame Street area that used to be all quarry, there was actually a train track there as well.
That's right.
And it runs right through that bush that everybody hates because bush has energies. Like I swear to God, there are no kids that play in that bush still. I grew up in that neighborhood my entire life. I played in that bush maybe twice and I was done. Bad vibes in there.
You got to question what the labor force was going through at that time, right?
Yeah.
So the residual energy, sitting in place on loop, right? No, I know what you mean. I stayed away from that area too. And I know my cousin lived right near it, and he's my cousin, his father told me the same thing, to stay away from the area and don't play in there, but never told me why.
Like that whole street, like Shane's place, the old chicken wing place, that whole street was a train track. Like right across that, all that was a train track. So like just imagine how much history there was on those train tracks.
Yep.
So,
and that's the thing. I said earlier, right? All of the organizations in this community, the buildings, especially more of the old school buildings in this community, it's gonna carry some energy there.
For sure.
Schools. Everybody has a Cattery school story. Those of you that went, you have a story. I have one. The best one that I remember was actually from my uncle who passed away a few years back. And he was telling me, because let's not forget that also was a day school. So actually, the history. You had Wahesu on, right? So we know that there were priests. We know that there were nuns there. I think I was the last regime of student population that had a nun. I had Sister K. I don't know. You probably don't know who she is, but she was there. Anyway,
my brother had her.
Yeah. Okay.
Not me though.
She was a piece of work. That's for sure. So. But the story goes, when my uncle was going there, he said that he had, there were nuns there. And he told me one time he was sent downstairs to retrieve something from the maintenance room. So he goes downstairs, he grabs whatever it is. I don't know, maybe paper towels or whatever, something simple. So he goes down and then he's walking back up the stairs. And what he witnesses, oh man, I could actually see it. What he witnesses, he said it was a nun walking up the stairs. So it would have been the main flight walking up to the second floor. So each step that the nun was taking, he heard this sizzling sound. So I'm horrible at sound effects, but I'll try. So you hear that. No, that was horrible. But anyway, you get the point. It wasn't bad. I'm trying. So a sizzling sound, not bacon, but like a burning, singeing sound.
Searing.
Perfect. There's the word, a searing. So yeah, that sound that when you're cooking that steak and you're searing it, that sound, that's what you want to hear. So he hears that each step, not thinking about it. And he said he kept a distance from the nun. She was already like maybe 3/4 up the way. And what he looked at, he said he looked at the stairs and he seen with each footprint was this searing sound. And she left a mark on each step, this red, hot, searing footprint on each step. And he said he walked up and he could feel the residual heat from that step, the footprints. And then he looked up at her and he said that she slowly turned around and looked at him. And I get this impression that those of you that have seen The Nun, the movie The Nun, I get that impression. You know, she turned around and looked at him with this eerie, creepy smile and just went, shh. And then she kept walking and he said he stood there for 5 minutes just crying. And then of course he went to class and he told the teacher what he had seen. And of course they didn't believe him, the students ran out and he said they were looking at the stairwell and of course they didn't see anything. Yeah. And that's the problem, right? You're the one that sees it. Yeah. How are people going to believe you if there's no proof?
It's meant for you.
Exactly.
That's it. It's meant for you. If you tell it as a story because that's what it is.
Yes.
But if you're meant to see it and experience, then that's yours.
What's what's the message?
It's
right?
It's for you. Yes.
And that story has stuck around because even when I was there, I heard that one.
No kidding.
Yeah, I heard that one.
Okay.
The nuns in the stairwell.
Okay. See, well, then there's, I literally got, those goosebumps. Yeah. So there's something
about that boiler room too. Freddy Krueger vibes going on. But like, I remember I was playing outside during recess and I fell in the mud. I was covered head to toe in water. I had to change into my gym clothes. So they were like, yeah, you need to go throw your stuff in the dryer, which is in the far back of that boiler room.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did that, but I managed to do it. But I think I ran out of there as soon as I could.
You held your breath while you were in there. As soon as
or if you even have to go to the bathroom by yourself, because the bathrooms are across.
Like,
ugh.
Well, see,
yuck.
you're pointing out something that's also very important. Not just with storytelling, but just having these experiences all on its own. It's the feeling of the basements.
Yeah, that weird dread that you get where you have to run up the stairs.
I don't care how old you are. There's 4 of us in this room. Guaranteed, at least one of us will have that feeling, if not all of us. That eeriness, that unsettled feeling. My bedroom is in the basement. Both of 2 of my kids, their bedroom is in the basement. We're used to it, obviously, but every now and then there's that feeling, especially when all the lights are out and it's 3:30 in the morning. You get this like, ugh.
Because we're literally subterranean.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're in the earth, but then we're also surrounded by stone.
There's no escape.
Concrete foundation.
Well, I had an elder in the community say, well, that was a stupid move. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Well, why did you build your bedrooms in the basement? I don't know, because that's where we want it, because it's cooler in the summer, and he says, well, what you effectively did is you're sleeping with the dead. I'm like,
ew.
Oh, dude,
my bedroom's in the basement.
Right?
Too.
Why are you telling me that? Why did you say that? But you know what? He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they say 6 feet under.
Yes.
And look, we're literally sleeping there, so.
Yuck.
But
that's so gross.
And if your house is built right next to the graveyard too, it's like,
come on, you got a poltergeist movie going on there, right?
Knock on the wall, there's something spooky on the other side.
That's it. But regardless, we have these stories, we have these feelings. Walking past the graveyard, that's a feeling.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to look.
Yeah, that's a vibe in its own. Going downstairs, just turning off the lights.
Looking out the windows at night.
Oh, if you're on the second floor, especially.
I have to have my curtains closed as soon as it goes out, because I seen a movie. I forget what it's called, but there was something like that where they're like, Haunting in Connecticut. Have you guys ever seen that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. There's a part in the movie where, like, in the basement, I think she was in the basement or something like that, and it's nighttime, and she's like looking out the window, and you could see the energy looking at her, and she can't see it, but it's looking at her.
It sees her.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. That was stuck in my head. I can't. My curtains, blinds are all closed that night. I can't look out the window. And that's just
a movie, right?
It's just a movie.
But I hear of stories just in our community of messages being written on second floor windows when there's no possible way to write a message on the exterior of the window. I mean, yes, there's ladders and everything, but you're going to hear those type of things. You're going to hear the ladder tap your wall or the window. You're going to hear something on your window.
You're going to hear the rustling.
Exactly. There's tall tale signs that there's a physical person out there, but I've heard it quite a few times of, especially it's usually children that this is happening to. They're 7, 8 years old. They hear something at that window and they go to look, and maybe there's a little message written on the window, or there's a handprint on the exterior. There's all these little signs of something being there. And then of course, I from me, my grandmother, she told me when I was young, if you ever hear this, any knocking at your window, because she knew, like, at my home that I lived on the second floor. My bedroom was, second floor, and I had my window. And she said that if you ever hear tapping or knocking at your window, you do not answer it. So what's the question that comes from there? Well, why?
Yeah.
Why not? Well, what's going to happen to me? And you think you're tough as a kid, but when that stuff happens to you, you're not so tough anymore, right?
But there's also that same thing, like if you hear knocking at your door, and if you could see that there's nobody there, don't answer it. But if you can't see and you do answer it and there's no one there, like I've always been told that you need to say you're not welcomed here.
Yep.
And then close the door.
Yep. That's it. There, even I know within the language, I hear people will say like "air to sawit" or "what's the hunzi air to ease it." So what's the hunzi? That's the blackness, the shadow, that darkness. You have to leave. So even like at the school, sometimes I'm doing cleanings on students or staff. You know, like they got that bad juju on them, that bad energy on them. They want to expel it. So I do some smudging, and that's some of the things that I'll say is. What's the hunzi air to ease it, take away that blackness, move someplace else. You're not welcome.
I love that about our language,
right?
Like that is just so descriptive, and you know exactly what that means to take that darkness away.
Exactly. It's like, you get out. That's
yeah.
Oh. Right to the point. Get out of here. Yeah.
I wanted to jump back. Like
sure.
We were talking about the story from the White House, the Okokwa apologizing for using the cemetery without permission.
Yeah, that's on me. Sorry.
I don't remember if we did have permission slips for the kids at the time. Probably not. Maybe not.
We had permission slips, from your parents. And I got to tell you the truth. Like every one of the parents that I contacted were totally game for it.
That's what I was just going to say.
Totally game for it.
Like, even if you don't have permission, nobody's mad because that's just kind of how we are here, right? Yep. Like everyone...
Hard face.
Yeah, hard face.
Not even just that, but like going back to the how we're used to it.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story, whether you're a skeptic or a non-skeptic or whatever. Like it's part of our cultural vibe in our community to just tell these stories.
No matter what your background is.
Yeah. No matter that's right.
No matter your religion.
And it goes back to that curiosity factor. And, they're all cautionary tales and they all have a point. They all have a reason for this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Just to maybe wrap things up a little bit here. Like there are some perspectives in the community that maybe think that there are some stories that should not be told.
Then my question is why?
Why?
Yeah. Well, sorry to cut you off. That's my immediate question. Why don't you want to tell that story? The story is there for a reason. Mm-hmm. There has to be the cautionary tale. There has to be something involved in that. Why am I not allowed to talk about Okokwa? Why am I not allowed to say certain things?
I did hear some feedback somewhere along the line where people actually a lot in certain classes and stuff that I took, even there's like a notion that if you talk about, because within our culture, we have condolence ceremony for people who have passed on.
Absolutely.
Because their spirit needs to go.
Yeah.
So then the notion here is that if we bring up these people, like in stories, we're bringing their energies back here.
Okay.
And maybe some of those energies should not come back here. Like almost like we're giving power to the negative
absolutely.
things.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that perspective, giving that power to the negative side of things. But like, look, we live in a world where there's positives and negatives.
Yeah.
This is the equilibrium of which we live in. Our creation story dictate that you have Tarunyuwag and you have Sawiskada.
That's exactly it. There's a balance.
Why do we just talk about Deganawida? I mean, Tarunyuwagu, and why aren't we talking about Sawiskada? Sawiskada had the same mother. Yeah. Why don't we talk? It's because he's the bad twin. I never believed that there's a bad twin. I teach my kids that there's balance.
Yes, because that's what that story is about. Is precisely. That there's a balance.
Exactly.
If you just talk about the good, then there is no bad, right?
Right.
Exactly.
That's very naive.
Or the good doesn't exist without the bad. They don't exist without each other. Linguistically. Yeah. Everything.
In each and every one of us, there's good and bad.
Yeah.
We have the possibility we could nurture a child, but we could also do harm to a child. We do harm to ourselves on a daily, or we uplift ourselves on a daily. Mm-hmm. It's in us. That's what the creation story, Tarunyuwagu and Sawiskada, that's us. That's everything. Mm-hmm. So that negative side of things, I'm sorry for the people that shared that with you, but you're going to have my generation. I'm assuming it's my generation and younger, or maybe a little bit older. We're going to say, well, we need to talk about those things.
I agree with that. I'm not saying that I agree with that we should not add the energy to it, but I do agree that there's a place for these stories.
Absolutely.
And
time and place.
And how do people know about these stories if you're not allowed to talk about it? So even if it is a negative story or a story about a person who did bad things, there's always a lesson there regardless.
Yes, exactly.
Well, look, I know we're limited on time now. Witchcraft. People will say, well, don't talk about it. Well, why? It exists. If there's if there's Wicca, then there's good things that happen with Wiccans, but there's also bad things that happen with Wiccans because they could.
Exactly. It all depends on intention, I guess, right? So
perfect word for it. The intention. So what's the intention of telling the stories, right?
Exactly.
Cautionary tales. So yeah, that's I'm pretty sure we're right on that timeline. Right?
Just did a full circle with that. There it is.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah, actually that was kind of perfect.
Perfect segue.
Really
good job though, Karina.
Yeah. No, good job to you guys, to all of us, because this is awesome. Normally, like I showed them before we came in that I typed up like this outline and I was like, this is just how my brain needs to function, but we didn't even look at this paper at all.
Didn't need to.
Didn't need to.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. Loved it.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Invite me back anytime. I don't know what you want me to talk about, but whatever. I'll help you guys out.
Well, that's that we're still working on that. We're trying to come up with some other ideas, but I think for November we're going to roll with the topic of like health and wellness and just the alternatives and like just anything health and wellness, because a lot of people have different perspectives on stuff. Yeah. So I think that's what November's podcast is going to be about.
Well, it fits in line with a lot of other things that happen in the community. You have the Spirit of Wellness Month where
and
KCS
I think it's just the time again too. Yeah. It's seasonal, right? Like exactly. It's like a lot of people are starting to go through seasonal depression and like all kinds of things. Yep. So, but this podcast is literally up for anything.
Well, it's
all
good.
About dialogue, conversations.
We're all coming out of COVID. So this is, like we have a lot of stories to tell. So
yeah,
and a lot to talk about health. So November is quickly approaching. So that's going to be awesome. Good job.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
No problem.
Thank you, Denon, for also being.
Oh, I'm here too. Yeah. This was a great. I had so much fun listening to Merrick here and listening to their stories, and I certainly hope that our listeners will as well. And I know it's a little late to say. I hope you listened at night, but this is the time where you would, because they're scary stories. It doesn't have the same effect if you're listening, at lunchtime. It's still good though.
It's still good stuff. We still got the heebie-jeebies.
Heebie dunno jeebie.
Hot square. All right. Now we'll go, everyone.
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of Iorì and its employees.